I want to bring in Einar Tangen now for more on the preparations and expectations of the G20 summit. He's a current affairs commentator who joins us from Beijing. First of all, let's start with the preparations. Looks like China's pretty well set for the G20 summit. Talk to me about that, how much effort's gone into this, and also the pride aspect. This is obviously a key moment for China to shine.
Well, hi, Mike. Obviously, China takes guests very, very seriously, as the Olympics in the past have shown. And Hangzhou has certainly undergone a major facelift. It's a beautiful city. It'll really showcase a part of the more traditional culture that people associate maybe historically with China, although they, of course, have a very, very modern face now as well. So a lot of preparations in terms of the physical side, but also on the economic and political side. You know, keep an eye out for all the kind of sideline meetings that will be taking place on a number of issues, especially between Obama and Xi, and also between other groups as they seek to try to make the G20 more relevant.
It's funny you brought up the sideline issue. I remember talking to somebody who had attended a G20 and said, a lot more is done in those sideline meetings than the formal stuff. So it really is key, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the, what we're seeing here is China and a lot of the other groups, developing world, is trying to see a more inclusive group rather than the G7, G8, or whatever it's called now, that is less inclusive. So they want this to be the kind of trading ground. But the difficulty is when you have 20 members at the board, it's very, very difficult to reach consensus or an agreement on how to go forward as a group. I think this idea of creating indicators is very important, but when these leaders get together, this is the time when deals can be cut, understandings can be reached on the sidelines. And this is, as you pointed out, much more important these days than corralling everybody as they try to develop a better economic picture.
It's interesting, though. It seems in some ways appropriate that China's hosting the summit, because I was just reading today the IMF out urging G20 nations to boost government spending with an appeal to spend more on infrastructure. And of course, that's something China has been championing with the One Belt, One Road initiative and the launch of the AIIB.
Well, it's a multipolar world today, and definitely the world is looking at China to kind of lead the way. If you look at the economies around the world, and on the developing side, both the U.S. and Europe are looking a bit anemic. And I mean that in kind of a structural way. Right now, you know, in the old days when things were bad, you know, you'd make sacrifices to gods and you know, maybe burn a chicken or something like that. Today, it seems in the West, the dependency is on monetary and fiscal policy, but this is not seeming to have the effect that is necessary. So the question is, are we acting out of superstition? On the other hand, China is looking at things that are more structural basis, that infrastructure is the key to the future, that there's a return to this kind of investment, and as opposed to things like helicopter money, which is being contemplated in Japan.
Let's talk about the backdrop, which I don't think anyone would have predicted probably a year ago. You've got the Brexit vote, one official saying that the G20 is challenged by the 3 Ts. Terrorism, Turkey, and Trump. There seems to be a lot of uncertainty out there, a lot of these issues on the fringes. How does that factor into things?
Well, it's a very uncertain world today, and unfortunately, the 3 Ts and Brexit, even the South China Seas, are playing into this kind of idea of uncertainty. When you're uncertain, you're not going to invest money. It's only when things are calm that you see a good future that you really start thinking that there are opportunities out there. So this is working very negatively against this group. I think China will be bringing a different outlook and saying, look, we need to be more forward focused on this idea of how we go forward together, and that this is the right forum to do it in. Very noteworthy that they've invited the largest number of developing and emerging countries ever to this type of thing. And unusually, they've said that Putin will be a guest of honor. As you recall, in the 2014, he was kind of chased away very abruptly over the situation in Crimea.
Well, there's no doubt about it. It's going to be fascinating. Einar, thanks so much for your insights.